Welcome, gamers, weebs, and nerds alike. We have just crossed the halfway mark of 2024, and there have been some absolutely amazing game releases so far. From indie game titles taking the limelight, to some remakes absolutely outdoing themselves, to sequels and AA games being better than their counterparts. There really has been something for everyone in the first half. With that being said, we compiled our top 10 best games so far, so make sure to subscribe for more geek content, and let's dive into the top 10.
First up on our list is Another Crab's Treasure. Another Crab's Treasure really came out of nowhere for us. This title was correctly branded as Ocean Dark Souls, and it is so fun. I may be pulling a bit of a bias, as I may or may not have a family member who is friends with one of the devs, but in my defense, I played this months before I learned that fact. This game has some of the best sassy little NPCs I've ever ran into, and it also boasts a surprisingly serious message, if you really want to dig down into all of that, but we'll steer clear of that for this top 10. This combat is fun, and the shell powers are really a nice twist on the genre. The boss and area designs are really cool in Another Crab's Treasure, as they are able to capture the cute and whimsical feel of the world, while also capturing the innate fear you get when facing a Souls boss. The only thing we wish is that there was maybe more weapon variety in this title. Now, yes, the fork makes sense and has a very cool adaptability with skewering onto certain objects in the ocean bed to technically change the weapon type, but that is easily made up for by the sheer variety of shells you can find and equipped. Not to mention the quite literal gun that you can equip, which, for what it's worth, we 12 out of 10 would recommend doing a playthrough with once you beat Another Crab's Treasure for the first time. Our hats, or rather our shells, are off to the team over at Aggro Crab for this masterpiece, and we look forward to seeing what they'll do next.
Now we have Persona 3 Reload. This shouldn't be a huge surprise to people, as Persona 5 Royal is one of my favorite games of all time. So when it got announced that Persona 3 was getting a remake, I was so excited, and boy did they deliver. The art style is fun and vibrant, which is such a perfect contrast to the dark tone of the game. The character portraits, the menus, the game just exudes that unique art style. The story is rather gripping as it tackles the dark hour that happens during the mythical 25th hour, which has the main group of characters attempting to bring it to an end and discover the mysteries behind it. The gameplay is reminiscent of Persona 5's with its own unique spins, such as the Theurgy abilities, which you can upgrade throughout the game, the shuffle from Persona 4 with cards that upgrade, and tarot cards with their own unique effects, and Mondo doors to spice things up a little bit with increased difficulty. I love how you can do things in the day and then explore the dungeon at night. It adds a lot more freedom in what you choose to do. There are a lot of social links, and some are better than others, but they all have their charm. I do wish maxing them out gave you bonuses like 5, but I'll take the new fusion, I suppose. The Velvet Room is still a nice relaxing place to fuse some personas, and Elizabeth is probably my favorite attendant so far. Not to mention the absolutely amazing soundtrack. All around, with the fun gameplay, lovable characters, good writing, and great art design, this is hands down one of the best games this year so far.
Next up on our list, we have the Mists of Pandaria Remix. Now, this may be more of a personal bias, but the World of Warcraft Pandaria Remix was a personal favorite for our release this year. Now, while it is technically a time-limited mode for an already existing game and not a fully fledged game itself, we felt it was a worthy addition to this list, as Pandaria Remix is perfect for two types of players. Firstly, you have players like myself that played Mop back in the day, but didn't manage to get maybe every gear set or mount they wanted, as they may or may not have been smooth-brained babies, and now the drop rates have cursed them in retail. Secondly, you have newer players like Zach who really truly only got into WoW as recently as Dragonflight, being able to experience Mop while getting some sick rewards. Yes, the time walking modes exist, but once you hit 60, you are booted from the content. So this mode is a wonderful way to experience the expansion. I know Mop is a mixed bag for many people, especially at the time when it had been over a year since we got new content, and then we got, hey, here's those pandas that were a joke mission in Warcraft 3. But for me personally, I absolutely loved and still love the beauty of all the zones, from their design to their music to the lore behind the iconic enemies and raids, with two of my favorites in WoW history and Mop alone being the Thunder King and Siege of Orgrimmar. I'll try not to ramble on too much more, but this event has me fangirling over Mop again. I think it was a great placeholder while we wait for the War Within pre-patch that is just on the horizon.
Next, we got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This was an obvious choice. After the amazing game and remake, I was shocked to see them up the ante again and deliver an even better game in Rebirth. All of the characters are fun, exciting, and unique in both their stories and gameplay mechanics. The combat is smooth and flows so well, especially with all of the Link abilities you can use. There are so many mini games and they're all a lot of fun to do and can suck you in for hours on end. Especially Queen's Blood, which is the card game in it. It's very simple, yet requires a little bit of planning and deck building in order to beat some of the harder enemies in the game. The unique chocobos for each area are cool and keep things fresh, and overall it looks beautiful. I keep finding it surprising how they managed to turn a 40-ish hour game from the late 1990s into 2 and soon 3 45 plus hour campaigns. The open world has enough to do without feeling overwhelming, and the RPG mechanics are pretty decently fleshed out with the ability to reset abilities whenever you want, so you can try different builds. It is a bit of a time sink, taking at least 46 and a half hours to beat with no side questing, but it is well worth it.
Next up, we have Helldivers 2. Need I say anything more than for democracy? Helldivers 2 is yet another entry that really came out of nowhere for us. All of a sudden, all over our social feeds and in our friend circles, everyone, and I truly mean everyone, was playing Helldivers 2. Within our first session playing this title, it's not very hard to see why. At first, Helldivers 2 was unmatched. The constant updates to the game adjusting to the community's actions was genius. The enemy design, the gunplay, it was all so much fun. It was hard not to get sucked into the loop of constant dives for XP, medals, and sweet, sweet samples. The ordnance system was and is fantastic, and leads to some of not only the coolest, but most hilarious moments. Like when you dive last minute out of an explosion radius of a payload that wiped out the last bug nest on the map, or when you accidentally drop a rolling thunder on your squad because they looted your dang sample container. We hope that Helldivers 2 can drop an update pretty soon to pull it back into the limelight for us and others. But overall, Helldivers 2 is an amazing way to live out those Starship Troopers meets Halo ODST fantasies, and we cannot recommend it enough. So be sure to try this one out for yourself if you haven't already, and oh yeah, for Super Earth!
Now that I've gotten some of the big AAA hitters out of the way, we got Enshrouded. This one came as a shock for us, as we didn't expect to enjoy an early access game, especially a survival crafting game, as much as this. The combat is surprisingly deep for this kind of game, with a parry system, dodging and melee, ranged and spellcasting. Of course, because it looks cool, I went with a mage build my first playthrough, and gosh, it's so much fun. The base building is cool, and while it doesn't offer anything unique, to an extent, it does its job really well. The questing system is also relatively cool and offers good rewards, especially with such a huge map to explore in. The gliding system is fun, and while I do wish there was a slightly better way to move around quickly, it's fast enough to not make things stale. The one nitpick we have is the necessity for those stupid special magic chests or the items to straight up just be in your inventory to craft, which can be tedious at times. But all around, this is a really fun game with a lot of potential going forward.
And next, we have Palworld. Despite the ever-present crashes, frame rate drops, and sometimes frustratingly low capture rates if you don't power grind levels, Palworld is an absolute gem. Obviously, we all know what critter capture series this may or may not have taken a base inspiration from. Well, blend that series with Ark-style crafting and leveling mechanics, and, well, you get this masterpiece. There are so many wonderfully designed pals, bosses, enemies, dungeons, and areas to explore, from flaming volcanoscapes and beautiful sandy beaches to giant snowy peaks and damp caves. There really is something for everyone in Palworld. Just in our small group alone, we have several hours of fond memories and lots of laughs in this chaotic world. With the recent update adding more pals, areas, and bosses, we are back in Paldea, baby. We will conquer that gosh darn oil rig. And well, if you somehow haven't played this record-smashing game yet, do yourself a favor and purchase it now or download it via Game Pass and you'll thank me later.
This one will probably be our most controversial in Dragon's Dogma 2. This is a difficult choice because there are a few other games I thought about putting here instead, like Unicorn Overlord and Granblue Fantasy Relink, but as I haven't finished two of those, I think Dragon's Dogma did enough to keep it up there for right now. The gameplay is darn near amazing for action RPGs, and the scale is done so well, especially against some of the bigger monsters like griffins, trolls, the Colossus, etc. The game looks amazing too, and each of the classes are different and unique enough to each be viable and new in their own way. And the pawn system is really cool. It does suck you can't rename your pawn, so if you screw up like I did, you end up with main pawn as your sidekick. But the map is huge, and there's just barely enough ox carts and stuff to speed up traversal that it doesn't feel slow. It does have its downsides, such as the lackluster story, which I was really hoping they would improve upon from the first one, which they failed to do. Repetitive enemies, Goblin Slayer would have a field day in this game. But as of right now, I'd have to keep this game up there as one of the better ones to come out this year so far, just off of gameplay and cool factor alone.
Truly saving some of the best for last on our list. Next up, we have the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion. What can I say about Elden Ring that hasn't already been said? It is absolutely insane to us that more passion and care went into development of a DLC than many full game releases anymore. Shadow of the Erdtree has completely revitalized my passion for the Souls genre, and I am not alone in that fact. The pure relief and bliss you feel when felling some of the bosses in this DLC are unmatched. The areas themselves in the DLC are also incredibly interesting, with loads of exploration possibilities and lore to uncover, but we'll let VaatiVidya handle that portion. For example, after getting down to the ruins below the Shadow Keep, I've spent countless hours just exploring every nook and cranny down there, as I keep finding new things to do and new corners to explore. The Shadow Tree fragments and the Ashes system for upgrading your power and the power of your summons was a great move. The only improvement on that system we wish that FromSoft had made is that they had something like 55 of each of those fragments instead of the 50 you can get, so you don't need to go find and track down every single one to stand a chance in the Shadowlands. With that minor want aside, the DLC is amazing, and it more than deserves all the praise that it gets.
Last, but definitely not least, we have Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. Technically, this is a DLC, but like with other Atlus titles such as Persona 5 Royal, Persona 3 Reload, Persona 4 Golden, etc., this has a lot of quality of life improvements as well as a bunch of new content, so it counts. I played the original SMT5 back when it came out in 2021, but I never finished it, so when this was announced, I felt like it gave me that push I needed to actually complete it. The combat in Demons is where this game absolutely shines, with its rewarding and punishing weakness-focused turn-based combat system. Especially with the addition of guest combatants, which are the human NPCs you met along the story actually being able to join your party. There are a lot of demons to be had, and Vengeance adds an additional 40 plus demons, making the total over 280 demons to fight, persuade, and team up with. There's a new rail system that allows you to explore even more of the map and creates nice shortcuts back to the checkpoints. One of the best features is being able to save whenever and not needing it to be at a ley line fount in order to do it. It makes it so much better and easier for people to just pop in for a little bit and then leave. The story isn't super amazing like Persona, but it does enough to keep you interested. The side quests are cool and fun enough to not feel like a slog, especially some of the timed ones, which have you finding and beating more basilisks in a lot of time than another demon, catching stars, and more. There's so much depth to this game, and I find myself lost in it for hours before I realize I need to take a break. If you haven't played this game yet or have been holding off on SMT5, Vengeance is a great point to hop in.
Thank you all for watching. Leave a comment down below letting us know your favorite releases of this year so far. Don't forget to like and subscribe as it goes a long way, and be sure to check out our various socials like TikTok and Twitch for more geeky goodness. Till next time, keep on geeking on.